Although there is other factors at play, Arsenal are clearly struggling to win games. In this video, we're going to look at the major detail and issue that Arsenal have, which is stopping them from excelling this season, which shows they definitely need a forward. So let's get into it. Now, we've been there and done that of all the angry videos about the situation at the club. Now it's time to look at a bit of tactics and why Arsenal are actually struggling to produce what they need to. Now, first of all, I will say that this comes from different levels, and I think Arsenal's inconsistency levels around the side make it hard for them to have one constant problem all the time. You look at the amount of injuries we've had this season, and all the other teams that have had major injuries are even struggling or are not playing at the same level as us, who are still competing and are still dominating games overall. Now, although there is quite obvious issues with the defense when players are injured and people have to come and cover and they can't quite mark people, I don't think that is really the big issue of Arsenal right now, and I do think it is the forward areas, which obviously with the injuries we have is going to happen. However, even before the injuries that we had, we were struggling a little bit more to score goals. Now, statistically, we have scored nearly the most goals in England, and you look at all of the statistics, we are very much up there. But any Arsenal fan knows when they watch the games, it's not exactly been that easy. There's some games we score 5 goals and look electric, and there's some games that we can't put the ball in the back of the net despite creating a lot. Now, there's definitely some issues with the finishing. Obviously, Kai Havertz is not the best finisher. Martin Odegaard has been awful in front of goal this season, which doesn't help. And obviously, if that improved, Arsenal would just look a lot better and score a lot more goals. However, the major issue for Arsenal is currently the high turnover to shot progression. And what I mean by that is Arsenal really do press high. One of the reasons you've seen Declan Rice play in that left centre mid spot recently is not only because he can move into a double pivot defensively if we need to cover, but it's because he can press very high up the field, and from goal kicks he can almost be on that midfielder and lock down the goalkeeper before he can make an actual pass out. Now, a lot of this time this means the other teams have to be very aware of passing out and the intensity that we have, and not all times, but we have it at quite a good level. We are still one of the best out of possession sides in Europe, and we do create a lot from that. Now, midway through last season, we were actually 3rd in Europe for the most high turnovers, actually leading to 6 goals, but having 45 shots overall. Now, this was a good level, was actually up there with the greatest teams such as Bayern Munich and PSG at this in Europe, and it was really effective at getting Arsenal on the break and making sure teams could be suffocated in within their defence. Now, high turnovers are very vital in football, in the Premier League especially. Teams are trying to press a lot more intently across the entire league and make sure teams can't pass through them, trying to win the ball higher up the pitch. Statistically, in the last 2 years, you've seen more high turnovers per game and more XG per shot than ever, so people are getting in good positions from this pressing. Now, one of the cornerstones of Arsenal's ability to be so successful in the league is this, and they have actually been still very good at getting high turnovers this season, being one of the best teams at it with Manchester City. And as you can see, the teams that are the best in the league at it are all pretty much having seasons where they're near the top of the league, even if it's not the best for them. Now, the major issue comes for Arsenal when they are trying to lead these into shots. We're winning the ball very much high up the pitch, but we're not actually ending up creating anything for it. If you look at the statistics on how impactful the turnovers are, we're not doing that well compared to some of the people that we're up there with. And the most damning thing is looking at the turnover shot conversion rate, which has us down in 14th despite having the second most turnovers behind Man City, who are first. We are only getting around an 18% conversion rate from the actual winning the ball high up. Now, this is very different to the last couple of years. We've been the best team in the Premier League last season and even the season before at it. And even though Arsenal definitely have a slower build-up than a lot of teams, this was the way that they had a quick build-up and always were on their feet, being able to break through, which we just do not have at the moment. And when looking at fast breaks in the league, Arsenal have only had 11 across the whole season and only scored 3 goals, 11 being the shots that was created from it. If you compare this to the best teams in the league, the Forests, the Liverpools, they're all in the top 2 or 3 people within it. And that's one of the most successful abilities Liverpool have had this season, at winning the ball on a break at any situation and being able to run into the progressive channels to create a shot and usually score a goal, which Arsenal just simply do not have. Now, the next question is, why do Arsenal actually have this problem then? We've widely got the same team we had last year when we were so good at it, so what is happening? Now, the first problem is, yet again, Arsenal are so reliant on the wing play that I think it is becoming a damning factor. If you look at the successful ball progression through Arsenal have the most on the flanks compared to any other team in in the Premier League, we have the least amount from central space and the least amount from half spaces. So when Arsenal are winning the ball up in them half spaces or even them central spaces, we just do not have enough players there or really want to build up. We have players out wide who aren't coming inside to make the good runs. And that is proven by the fact we are still so wing heavy. Even against Villa, you saw it mostly went down the right side trying to create this, and this caused a lot of problems. We won the ball back quite high up the pitch very much a lot of times, but Odegaard may take too long on the ball and ends up passing it out wide where Sterling isn't going to get the ball through, or Martinelli or Trossard, which is just a big problem right now. And that gets into the second problem that Arsenal have that is deeply concerning. It is the players that are on the wings and in the attack. Now actually Trossard has proven that when he is given a chance on the break, he will turn it into a shot. Might not always be the best shot, but for instance against Tottenham, when he went through from a high turnover, he shot, we got the luck and it went in. When Martinelli and Sterling however get into these positions, especially one-on-one, they don't make the best movements and they really can't get past their player, which is causing a lot of issues for Arsenal on the break. I also think the fact that Havertz usually defends deep at the moment, so he's not in the attacking line, so we are relying on the two wingers and Odegaard to create, and Odegaard is not really doing that well right now. His passing's been very much off and his decision making has been poor as well, which I don't think is helping Arsenal progress. But there is tactical issues as well. Arsenal do not have all them players running up and we don't play an aggressive style of football enough to really capitulate on these chances. If Liverpool are to win the ball high up the pitch, they have a lot of their midfielders and a lot of their team close and willing to run up to get into the box. Now we may have Rice who will run up there if he can, but usually you've seen our man-to-man marking, he comes all the way back to left back and right back to even help and mark players, and the same with Trossard. So when we do win the ball up, it's literally Odegaard and one of the wingers usually on the right. That isn't Bukayo Saka, so it just isn't good enough right now. And if anyone's next to Rice, such as Mourinho, Jorginho or Partey, they're just not viable enough to actually run into them attacking channels because they do not have that mobility given the players that they are. Now the question might be, how do Arsenal sign it? Now within the team there's a few ways that they could get better. We just maybe need Odegaard to perform a little bit better and make decisions quicker, but I do think if Sterling came a little bit more into the half space, or the wingers come into the half spaces and central areas a bit more, it actually would probably help them staying out wide. But to me the only real solution that Arsenal can make is to make a sign-in, and what this means is that Arsenal definitely need a direct player, even a striker or a winger, that can actually pick the ball up and just run at players by himself. He doesn't need people supporting him, he doesn't need all options everywhere. If he can just run and get a shot away, I think it's the key thing. Now of course the main player that everyone is probably going to link this to is Antoine Semenyo. I think he's one of the most direct players within the league. I think he's had the third most shots in the league actually, behind Haaland and Salah, who obviously have scored the most goals. And every time he gets into these positions, one-on-one or even forward, he wants to shoot, which sometimes can be a negative, but I think in Arsenal's instance this is something that we need within the team. There has also been links to people like Mbeumo, who's a little bit of a different winger. He's more tight to you on the right hand side, he more cuts in and can work by slowing down the play but also running in behind, which could be what Arsenal need. But overall I think it's clear that Martinelli, unless he gets on the inside and gets into a really good position, and usually how we press that is going to be quite hard for him to do, is not really viable. Sterling I just don't think is really good enough to play for Arsenal right now, and I do think when Nwaneri comes back in a few weeks time it could maybe solve that solution a little bit, but you can't really rely on a 17-year-old to shoot a lot, although he does have great shooting ability. Overall this is why Arsenal could still buy a winger to affect them. Obviously a striker would help as well, that doesn't have to come all the far deep, but that would ruin the pressing in some ways, so you've got to kind of take that as you can. Or even having a striker that pushes out wide and someone else can play deeper, such as Martinelli maybe, might actually help the team. But it is evidently clear that Arsenal need to solve this if they're going to catch up to Liverpool and actually get better. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and I'll see you in the next one.